Good evening. Today is the 21st day of November 2015, and we are continuing with our explorations in Savitri. Today we will complete Canto 1 of Book 2 and begin with Canto 2, and we have our brother Alok with us as always. Namaskar. Continuing with Mother's words to a sadhak on Savitri. These are experiences lived by him, realities, supracosmic truth. He experienced all these as one experiences joy or sorrow physically. He walked in the darkness of inconscience, even in the neighborhood of death, endured the sufferings of perdition, and emerged from the mud, the world misery, to breathe the sovereign plenitude and enter the supreme Ananda. He crossed all these realms, went through the consequences, suffered and endured physically what one cannot imagine. Nobody till today has suffered like him. He accepted suffering to transform suffering into the joy of union with the Supreme. It is something unique and incomparable in the history of the world. It is something that has never happened. He is the first to have traced the path in the unknown, so that we may be able to walk with certitude towards the supermind. He has made the work easy for us. Savitri is his whole yoga of transformation, and this yoga appears now for the first time in the earth consciousness.
When Mother spoke of humility as a fundamental quality, a safeguard on the path, and she defined humility with reference to the divine. So there is a false humility where in front of people we go backward and forward and inwardly keep believing that we are great. But in front of the divine, whatever you have realized, whatever you may have experienced is nothing compared to that vastness, that infinity. But what would be divine humility? Because human humility is in reference to the divine. So while you were reading, this is what I thought. Divine humility is that he identifies himself with the stone and the clod, with the worm to be, with the humankind, though we have very high opinion of ourselves. And renounces his individual realization so that the collective realization may be hastened. And this is what we see here. And we need not go now line to line, but we can pick up some of the main aspects.
Beginning with all thought can
All
know.
thought can know. All thought can know, or widest sight perceive. And all that thought and sight can never know. All things occult and rare, remote and strange, were near to heart's contact, felt by spirit sense, asking for entry at his nature's gates. They crowded the widened spaces of his mind, his self-discoveries, flaming witnesses, offering their marvel and their multitude. So, as he stands now, the seer king, the yogi Ashupati, has discovered his own avataric mission, his avataric role, the divine consciousness waiting at the gates of the supermind, like a king reviewing the entire kingdom, the field over which he has to work. And what he does, that is something wonderful. These now became new portions of himself. This is the supreme integration. He takes them all within himself. These now became new portions of himself, the figures of his spirit's greater life, the moving scenery of his large time walk, or the embroidered tissue of his sense. These took the place of intimate human things and moved as close companions of his thoughts, or were his soul's natural environment. So they became completely integrated with his being. He had extended himself everywhere. He was one point, that was infinity. That is how Aurobindo describes this experience. And it's a different sense of time. It is the fusion of the timeless and the time, of the infinite and the finite. So then there's a very beautiful description of how this world stair looks. Page 98, the next page. This is very interesting because normally our human mind tries to put things in cut and dried fashion. Okay, this is one plane of consciousness, this is another, this is the third one. But look at Aurobindo's description. This obviously here, it's his own experience. It's not so cut and dried. They are melting into each other like waves beyond waves. And this is a very amazing description. They're walled apart by its own innerness. What is the wall? It's literally like a wave. At one point, it is one with the sea, melting into the other wave and extending everywhere. At another point, by its own contours, it is held like separate. We regard it as separate. In a mystical barrage of dynamic light, he saw a lone, immense, high-curved world pile, erect like a mountain chariot of the gods, motionless under an inscrutable sky. As if from matter's plinth and viewless base, to a top as viewless, a carved sea of worlds, climbing with foam-maned waves to the supreme, ascended towards breadths immeasurable. So this is the way these staircase works. It is literally like one melting into the other, like waves beyond waves beyond waves, climbing to the sun.
And matter's plinth is also viewless.
Yes. In fact, that's why he has said at the beginning that it has no beginning and no end. Because the inconscient has no beginning and the superconscient has no end. So it begins from there and goes on and eventually melts into the supreme. And it also gives this very clear suggestion that creation is one with the divine. And therefore it has no beginning and no end. What we call as beginning and end, what is called as pralayas or dissolution, is only some worlds which dissolve in their form and structure. But their essence is never lost. Their fundamental consciousness is not finished. They draw back. And that's why the mother says that you can't destroy things. You can only pass them out of the state of manifestation into the non-manifest. This is all that can be done. You can't destroy it. It is a link in the chain, and this link is important. And at a more pragmatic level, you can clear the disorder by putting things in their own place. This is the second thing we had seen, that in the divine consciousness, to the divine vision, everything is in its own place, and therefore it is right and proper. But the moment it shifts place, it becomes evil. So I used to have this, there used to be a very, I would call it a gory program, but people enjoyed it. WWF wrestling. Now, this was really a freestyle wrestling where it was no holds barred. But then you see, still in the arena of the wrestling ring where people were fighting with each other, it was okay. But if this was to spill over on the street, it would be really, really something which would create chaos. So there is a place for everything. And if we keep it in its right time and space, there is no problem. So this arrangement of things in the time and space is called in Vedas as Rith. So, in the Veda, truth is covered by these three terms. Satyam, it is the eternal. Rhythm, it is arranged in a certain cosmic order which is seen by the divine vision. And Vrahatam, it is vast. But if things are not arranged in their place, then there is chaos. And upon earth, all these different states of consciousness crowd. This is the big problem.
Would this be tantamount to the world wars also?
Yes, absolutely. And that's why even these are required so that they break the old world order which had hardened, disorder hardening into law. So you need to go through those destructions so that a new order can emerge. Of course, this is not the way it should advance. There are happier ways nearer to God's Son. But that's how it is thus far. And see these lines. 100 levels raised it to the unknown. So when we speak about these three worlds, life, mind and matter, we are basically speaking in a very summary way. Or sometime when we, there was a map where, each plane has three levels of consciousness. This is a very, very mentalized way of looking at it. At each level, there are many, 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 many sub-layers because nature revels in endless variety. Just look at the material world and see how many countless varieties, even of one species, it creates. Yes. Even in a tree with the same genus, same family, same species, but no two leaves will be alike. Yeah. So imagine these countless system of worlds. And it's so easy to be lost in any of them and regard that, well, this is it. As climbs a storied temple tower to heaven, built by the aspiring soul of man to live near to his dream of the invisible. So once man tried to build this tower of heaven, in fact there are two stories. One is in the Indian context where Ravana tried it. Obviously it collapsed. The second is when we have the story of the Tower of Babel. It was attempted. And it collapsed because human beings began to misunderstand each other. And the third effort is Aurobindo. It is another tower built to heaven. But this time I am sure this will succeed. Yes. We have learned from past experiences and the Divine Mother's grace is there. Infinity calls to it as it dreams and climbs. Its spire touches the apex of the world, mounting into great voiceless stillnesses. It marries the earth to screened eternities. So these are the steps which have been created for our ascent. We can't jump. If we try to jump, we would fall and hurt ourselves. We have to go through these steps and stages which have been created as a result of involution, steps and degrees through which the divine consciousness has entered into the inconscient. So that is how these are steps which are meant for our return, our ascent. And as we ascend a layer, each layer, the whole inner being, the energy, the kind of consciousness, the very thoughts, feelings, everything changes. So this is the way, if at all, to change ourselves. It's to shift the needle of consciousness. If we try outwardly, it doesn't work. So, one of the commonest problems, when people go through difficulties and the commonest advices are the easiest thing to give and the hardest to practice, is think positive. So people come and ask, but how to think positive? Everybody knows it. I mean, every day you experience it. Today I had to go and see somebody who had died. So quite naturally, the relations were crying, somebody who was very, very close. And everybody was saying, no, no, don't cry. You know what mother has written, you should not cry, all these things. So the lady at one point got exasperated. I know all this. I can't help it. It's so true. One had to understand, it's not intellectual knowledge. I know all this. You have to shift the needle of consciousness. All that was needed was not to talk about it, but to embody that peace, maybe just aspire, pray, quietly give a little hug or tap on the head and help her shift, reorient, and everything will change. This is the way to change. So here we get some of these clues. And look at few lines below. It is within, below, without, above. So all these planes of consciousness exist within us. They also exist as worlds, objective worlds. It is within, below, without, above. Acting upon this visible nature scheme, it wakens our earth matter's heavy dose to think and feel and to react to joy. It models in us our diviner parts. So otherwise matter would remain asleep. There would be only matter and the divine. So how matter wakes up to life? The forces of life, which are part of the planes of life, they come and shake, they touch it, and they whirl it. You see, it's very interesting when you read in biology how matter changed into life. So literally the description is as if this whole material world was put in a tremendous, cyclotron and whirled. You have those electrical currents, you have the forces which are literally churning it. Now if you look at it from another point of view, what was happening? The power of life was throwing matter here, there, so that ultimately it can awaken to something new. Are we not in a similar cyclotron now? Another kind of forces churning us tremendously, so that ultimately we too can awaken to our diviner parts. They are hidden. We are too satisfied with being human. And so these forces come and push us out of our comfort zones. And these are the powers which shape our diviner parts.
Isn't there a line? Human, I am human, let me remain.
Yes. That is the last, shall I say, the last defense of the inconscient. Yeah. After all, what can I do? I am human.
Yeah.
Mother says one of the qualifications, rather, a sign that one is ready for this life is that one is no more satisfied being human. If I am satisfied with being human, then I am still meant to remain where I am. This urge comes. Why? Because these greater consciousnesses, they come visit us in our dreams, inspire us to think and feel otherwise. Lifts mortal mind into a greater air, makes yearn this life of flesh to intangible aims, links the body's death with immortality's call.
How beautiful.
Yes. And look how beautiful this line is. If earth were all, and this were not in her, this whole ladder, these levels of consciousness, thought could not be, nor life delights response. This is a direct answer to the hardcore material scientist.
Mm-hmm.
It's a direct answer that if really matter was all, there was nothing other than matter, then by no freak of accident you can conceive that life, thought can awaken in it. It's not possible. By its nature, something which is not there cannot suddenly emerge by any kind of accident, because it's not there. It's only because it is there, it pushes us, and eventually we see that something new burst forth. So in a certain sense, it is not in our hands. That's what the mother said, that the coming of the supermind, the supramental being, the new creation is really not in our hands. At the same time, we can collaborate. So, this is what is given to man. Because this ladder is there, because these layers of consciousness are there, they are bound to goad us, call us to infinity, call us to immortality.
And Mother says, in answer to, what do you expect from us?
Yes.
She says, nothing. What should we expect from you?
Everything. So, I am reminded of a poem of Aurobindo where he says, there is a need within the soul of man. The splendors of the surface never sate, for life and mind and their glory and debate are the slow prelude of a vaster theme, a preface to the epic supreme. So, there are people who read the preface and are very satisfied. I have read the book.
Yeah.
So we are like that. We have just read the preface. So much more is yet to come. Earth, by this golden superfluity. So many regard also this, these are dreams, imaginations. There are some fellows who are crazy people. All the crazy people have ultimately gravitated to Pondicherry, where they dream of supramental beings and such changes. They would call it superfluous. Look at Sri Aurobindo's word. To an ignorant vision, it is superfluous. But yet, earth, by this golden superfluity, bore thinking man, and more than man shall bear. Because very often people ask, this superfluous, again in this sense. All right, it's all very nice, change of consciousness, all very good to hear all these things, supramental and all, but it is not going to impact our everyday life. How does it matter? Utilitarian. So, to such a consciousness, it is indeed superfluous. At one place, Sri Aurobindo says that supernumerary on earth stage, psychic being.
Yeah.
But
standing in the wings.
Yes. But because of that, everything changes.
Beautiful lines.
Yes. This higher scheme of being is our cause and holds the key to our ascending fate. It calls out of her dense mortality the conscious spirit nursed in matter's house. So this again, people who doubt and wonder, supermind, all this, Sri Aurobindo very beautifully said, it is inevitable in the very logic of things. This is the logic of things. All spiritual traditions speak about this ladder. But for some reason or the other, they don't think of manifestation beyond man, at least an earthly manifestation, which is a kind of error even of spiritual logic.
Yes.
Because if there is a, ladder, subtle worlds inside, they are bound to manifest sooner or later. So this is where we see.
And he says the supramental
Yes.
is a thing decreed. And is in the very nature of things inevitable.
In the very nature of things. It is there. The only thing is how long, how far, how much we have to travel. That's all is given to us. So we go a few lines below. A ladder of delivering ascent. So it at once liberates us from that which was below. A ladder of delivering ascent and rungs that nature climbs to deity.
Wow.
Once in the vigil of a deathless gaze, these grades had marked her giant downward plunge. So this is this ladder was formed because of the great leap into the inconscient, what Sri Aurobindo speaks of as involution. And the other day we were speaking of involution and evolution, and another image came to my mind. The image is of a tree which condenses and concentrates all its energy into a seed. This is involution. Not only does it completely concentrate into a seed, the seed is thrown onto the ground. And not only on the ground, deep inside. This is involution. And then the same journey it traces back and goes step by step and emerges. So this every day we see involution and evolution, and it's really part of everyday life. Nature shows it to us. It is done at every level. Similarly, we see in rebirth, same thing happens. A child goes through stages, becomes an adult, then starts becoming a child again. And eventually, back to that stage, enters the womb. This is involution. But from there will be a new being who will emerge. That is evolution. All that he has carried through this process will once again emerge and go still further. There are many dreams, aspirations, in the highest sense, which one could not fulfill in a particular lifetime, aspired, but could not fulfill. They have gone with that immortal seed. And they will once again enter and start their play.
And Mother says that only that which is gathered around the psychic being,
yes,
will last.
So all these aspirations, it happens. Human life is like that all the aspirations are not necessarily fulfilled in one life, but they have yet gone. And what happens to this aspiration? Ultimately enters into a little baby, helpless. And yet this baby, who knows, would be a conqueror or a sage. That's how Savitri is. So we see this involution and evolution all the while. The wide and prone leap of a Godhead's fall.
That's an interesting line.
Yes.
Because he has in another place, a God come down and
greater
by the fall.
Yes. Because it's only by this process of entering back into matter that there is a possibility of gathering something else, something new. Matter is a storehouse of everything and going to a still greater stage. That's why rebirth has been created for this purpose. Otherwise, we would rest in the typal worlds. So even the gods, if they have to evolve, they must touch base with matter. And it's a fall, no doubt about it. But at the same time, this is how evolution can proceed. And now it comes, who has built this ladder? Our life is a holocaust of the Supreme. So we were speaking the other day about Chinnamasta. And we have, of course, this holocaust of the Supreme stories in Indian myth, the Purush Sukta, where the divine being has become this creation. And of course, the famous legend of Sati, where she completely gives her body. And as her body enters the fire, Shiva comes and carries that. Now, this is interesting, that this is a body which is now gone into the fire. It's a holocaust. And matter which is purified because of this great sacrifice. Portions of that fall everywhere and they become like power spots to awaken earth and matter to that light. And I don't know, I feel like recounting this strange experience I had. I didn't know about Gaya. Gaya is a place which is very interesting. There are many kinds of things there. But one of the things is that Sati's heart has fallen there. So when somebody took me to the place, and normally it's okay. I go. I have read the story and I feel something very deeply connected to it. But I would not normally enter into places like that. But since I had gone there and I was taken to that place where, it's turned into a stone as per the legend. So I just touched it. And I don't know, I had to just put my hand back because I didn't know that it's the heart. But I knew a portion has gone and I didn't pay any attention. And I felt something is pulsating. So then I thought that it's supposed to be stone. I don't know what is it. So again I put my hand and I could feel that gentle pulsation. So this happened 3 times. And then later on I asked, what is it? So then they said that it is the heart which has fallen. And I don't know how far it is. I won't say that I'll have the same experience if I go again, because the mind will probably intervene or somebody else would have it or not have it. But look at the whole story, the legend. It is the legend of the Divine Mother who, by her sacrifice, is awakening matter. She has chosen to become matter. She has chosen to enter the inconscient. And now, of course, in this avatar, she has chosen to become like us. And you were speaking about Sri Aurobindo's suffering. It's a very good reminder every time when, at a personal level, we become impatient with others, who may not be so-called up to our standards, whether in the way people live or whether the way they think. This is a reminder that Sri Aurobindo and the Mother chose to live amongst us. I mean, what are we?
Yeah.
What kind of, when people walked past them, what they would be experiencing. And yet they chose to take a human body and, live amongst us. What more can there be, what more suffering than to diminish oneself so much so that we could be ennobled and enlarged. So this is the suffering which very often people do not understand, because we understand suffering only which is external. We don't understand the suffering of a God. So in Indian thought, again, we have three kinds of suffering. One of them is spiritual suffering, God-like suffering. So God-like suffering is when your consciousness has changed considerably, but you are surrounded by everything that contradicts that. And yet you have to be there. You can't escape. Buddha can enter into nirvana, but he can't run away from those who are seekers, who are aspiring. His compassion brings him close to them, and yet he suffers and takes all that smilingly. The same is true of Sri Aurobindo and the Mother. So this is what we see here, that our life is a holocaust of the Supreme. The great World Mother, by her sacrifice, has made her soul the body of her state. So it is she who became matter, she who became these cells, entered into the dumb, dark depths of these cells. And what she endured. I mean, the Mother has spoken about Sri Aurobindo. Of course, yes. But, I have a bit partisan towards Mother, what she has suffered. She has not even revealed that. When she would go through those pangs of agony, and human beings below, one could hear her cry loud.
We would stand below.
And it was not a cry of complaint, it was a cry of a lioness. Leonine cry, make me walk, lift me up.
Yes.
Because the body is just not obeying that kind of a consciousness. It has entered into the cells, and the cells just don't know how to respond to it. So that sacrifice, that suffering, that holocaust, that she becomes this body completely identified, doesn't just assume a body, because the avatar assumes a body for a certain work. But the avatar completely forfeits the divinity to become one with the body. This is the first time that we find it. And Mother says that at several places. At one place she says, I have neither the uncontested authority of a sage nor the sovereignty of a god. And then she explains this, that I had to renounce it so that I can completely identify with the body. And people would come and ask about her omniscience and omnipotence. She says that if I don't renounce it, I cannot do this work. So can we imagine what that renunciation is?
We talked about Sri Aurobindo's renunciation the other day.
Yes.
Look at Mother's
Look
also.
at Mother, and it's here. Accepting sorrow and unconsciousness. Here it is. Divinity's lapse from its own splendors wove the many patterned ground of all we are. So the first sacrifice is the Holocaust. The second sacrifice is when she assumes a human body. And the third sacrifice is where she becomes the body completely, enters into it. An ideal of self is our mortality. Our earth is a fragment and a residue. This is something we have to always remember. She says that for human beings, earthly realizations carry a very great place. We only know ourselves and the earth. But she says that always we should remember that immensity before which earth is just a dot. It's a very important dot, no doubt, but still a dot. So its importance is there, but we should not forget that there is a background of immensity and vastness. Her power is packed with the stuff of greater worlds. This is the beauty of earth and the beauty of this matter. There is intelligent life everywhere. I think I was mentioning the other day about this movie, The Day When the Earth Stood Still.
Oh, yes, I know.
Oh, you must have known. Yes. Yeah, I'm sure the author has either read Aurobindo something or heard, or is definitely somewhere influenced. So there's these aliens who come, but they are good aliens, but they want to save the earth. So one of them is captured, and captured means he allows. He can easily demolishes them all. So they ask him that, why have you come? So he says, to save the earth. So they ask him, you came to save us or to destroy us? So he says, I came to save the earth. So he remains quiet. And later on he discloses that I came to save the earth from humans because humans are destroying it. So the only way was to destroy humanity. And he unleashes the powers of destruction, that human beings will be destroyed, then only there is hope. Then in that story enters, there is a lady who is, full of love, and a child who comes. So leaving the story apart. Then at one moment he observes the kind of love that exists in human beings. She observes the interaction of this stepmother with the stepson. It's a beautiful interaction. It's a very moving thing. And he observes, he has the power to undo many things. And then at the end of it he says, well, I must say there is hope. There is hope to change because there is love. And then he says, well, you have been taken to this crisis so that you can change. And then he says that we also had faced this crisis and we changed. We believe that you can't change, but you can change. So look at the earth is packed with these greater powers. They are asleep. In majority, they may not be awakened. Still, they touch from behind. Even in the worst person, even in a man like Hitler, the epitome of cruelty. And yet, he had a very sentimental love for his cat. He would weep. He couldn't see it being hurt. And of course, he was a vegetarian. That's so much for being a vegetarian. Whatever it counts for. An atavism of higher birth is hers. Next line. Yes. We have always heard of atavism in terms of something which is past, something which is to be left behind. But what earth has left behind? Aurobindo only can use words in this magical way. Yes. An atavism of higher births is hers. Yes. Her sleep is stirred by their buried memories, recalling the lost spheres from which they fell. Unsatisfied forces in her bosom move. They are partners of her greater growing fate and her return to immortality. They consent to share her doom of birth and death. Life is immortal. Mind is immortal. Yet it has come, these forces have come, these powers have come and locked themselves to earth and matter. And so they share the fate. The supramental consciousness is immortal. And now it is connected to every being who is born on earth. Particularly as the mother says after 67, in fact after 58. She says this new substance has been integrated. Nature has accepted it. Which means there is something new which has come which cannot be destroyed. And yet outwardly the body dies. So it accepts the fate temporarily so that it may grow and conquer it.
She said all the beings born after 4, 5, 6, 7
Yes,
would be special.
yes, particularly to the devotees. At the same time,
Yes, yes.
I mean, those who are open and turn to the light. But she also cautioned that they are not going to be easy to manage. They are going to be unmanageable because they will carry in their consciousness deep inside something that is vast and free. So she cautioned that. We can see that. And then a few lines below, it's really, everything is so beautiful and gives us hope. His vast design accepts a puny start. So whenever we feel miserable and helpless and hopeless, well, it means that something great can begin now. She says that human beings they can grow greater than the gods. But the gods have made their life miserable so that they learn the lesson of humility and then they can really grow and expand. So this feeling, this experience of being small, his vast design accepts a puny start. An attempt, a drawing half done is the world's life. Its lines doubt their concealed significance. Its curves join not their high intended close. So beautifully Sri Aurobindo. See, people say Sri Aurobindo is difficult. It's so easy. He's describing this world as a half-finished picture. So what is a half-finished picture? It looks strange, chaotic. Nobody can make any sense of it. Or a half-finished idol. It looks very strange. It is nothing. One would naturally looking at it say it's a meaningless thing.
Yes.
God created this meaningless world. Well, if what he created is finished, but it's not finished. So this one little change and changes the whole perspective. Oh, it is still in the making. He's still drawing the lines. So let him complete the picture and we shall see.
The final act.
Final act. That's what the mother said. Yet some first image of greatness trembles there. And when the ambiguous crowded parts have met, the many-toned unity to which they moved, the artist's joy shall laugh at reason's rules. This can be and this cannot be. So we have these regular debates going on televisions. Everything they debate, except one thing. Is man changing? Can man change? Will man change? No. They have no clue about it. They're talking about all that is current event. But the thing that is happening and gaining momentum and pace with every child that is born in this world is something different. So that they don't know, they don't discuss. Yeah, I have not seen debates on the children who are being born. There should be debates. That's the most happening thing in the world.
Yes.
So, the divine intention suddenly shall be seen. The end vindicate intuition's sure technique. See this divine, it's amazing. Sometimes you see these sand artists. And it's amazing for quite some time as the artist is moving, you don't know what he's going to do. It's very amazing to see that. I'm sure some of us may have seen. And then suddenly towards the end, and the picture is done, and you say there's an aha experience. Wow, how did he do it? But we can't imagine because everything is moving so fast. Things are changing. You imagine it's this, no, something else. So intuition's sure technique. This world was not built by reason. Thank God. Therefore, it cannot be understood by reason. Intuition's sure technique. A graph shall be of many meeting worlds. A cube and union crystal of the gods. This, of course, the supramental sign. A mind shall think behind nature's mindless mask. A conscious vast fill the old dumb brood space. We'll just read this passage. Let us finish it here. It'll take another few minutes, but it's something very amazing. A mysteries processes the universe. So what is this mystery? Of course, we know it's a mysteries process, but look at how carefully those words are arranged. He's not saying that universe is a mystery. We all know that. A mysteries process. There is an original mystery, and therefore all the processes. And what is the process? It's a top-down view. At first was laid a strange, anomalous base. Nothing, which is everything in potentiality. So it's an anomalous base. A void is cipher of some secret whole, where zero held infinity in its sum, and all and nothing were a single term. So this is the anomalous base.
There it is.
Everything is hidden in a possibility as a potential, and yet there is nothing. Nothing is immersed. An eternal negative, a matrix not, into its forms the child is ever born, who lives forever in the vasts of God. The Jivatman.
Capital C for child.
Yes, child. The child of God, who is forever in the vasts. So this is the poise of the eternal soul, the Jivatman, which is forever one with the divine in its supramental state. But a portion of it plunges and is born into new forms again and again and again. And then what happens? A slow reversal's movement then took place. A gas belched out from some invisible fire. So these are the steps. These are all, of course, description of subtle forces at play. Of its dense rings were formed these million stars. Upon earth's newborn soil, God's tread was heard. So this is, of course, the 5 elements which go step by step. So we have space, and then we have air, and then we have fire, and then we have water, and then we have earth. This is the sequence. And we have the corresponding senses also. So Aurobindo is revealing that in a summary way. And then he describes the evolutionary process. But the last 4 lines are simply wonderful. 6 lines. Okay, we'll read from here. A spirit dreamed in the crude cosmic world. Mind flowed unknowing in the sap of life. Just imagine. Even in the mountains, the rivers, the cosmic world, the drifting of the stars, there is a spirit which is asleep there, dreaming. And then the sap, the plant life, the animal life, there is a mind which is beginning to awaken. Mind is already there, which means, see, imagine what possibilities there are. We can make a spirit-to-spirit communication with even the most material world. If we know, if we have realized our own soul, and if we have discovered the spirit. That's how we have, of course, so many stories in the Indian scripture. And the mother herself, when people were making Par guest house, she said, have you asked the sea for the land? So we can communicate to the sea. We can communicate with the mountain because the spirit is there. It's not without. In fact, in Indian thought, every mountain, every river is supposed to have a personality of her own or his own. And you can actually communicate with them and through them to the divine. So, through a certain river, you can approach a Godhead because you don't, it's not to the river, but to the Godhead of the river. So when people offer some offerings to Ganges, they do it with this intention that she is a conscious being, not just a body of water. And this conscious being can lift whatever we have offered, not just the material water, that's only an outer link. But all our prayers she can carry and connect it with the Supreme. So you see, there is a whole secret world waiting to be discovered. We can communicate with plants because in the sap, mind flows. We can talk to the plant.
There was a great black botanist in the early 1900s, George Washington Carver, in southern U.S. He said, Anything will give up its secrets if you love it enough.
Yes, beautiful, very beautiful. Absolutely. Of course, that's much greater and deeper than the mind itself. Mother has spoken of love as the great secret. And she says it's because of love that the divine consented to sacrifice. And she speaks about the avatar and says it is the great secret. Secret of secrets. And matter's breasts suckled the divine idea. A miracle of the absolute was born. So we talk about miracles. There is an everyday miracle. The miracle is that the divine shuts himself in a seed, a molecule, an atom, and yet remains the divine and shuts himself in that, confines. So this is a miracle. A tree confines itself to a seed, all its energies. This is a miracle. And then it emerges exactly according to the idea that is there in it. So a miracle of the absolute was born. Infinity put on a finite soul. All ocean lived within a wandering drop. A time-made body housed the illimitable. He started with the child. The psychic essence which has gone into creation is there behind every atom of existence. And as it grows and grows, so it's a finite soul. It represents one degree or one angle, one aspect of the divine. It is immortal, but yet it's a basis of experience is finite. It puts on that. Now look at the beauty that ultimately what does the divine create? He creates a finite aspect of himself, he who is infinite. And it's one with the divinity. It can completely unite. She says, when somebody asks Mother that, there are people with more capacities, less capacities, she says, yoga has nothing to do with capacities. Whatever your capacities, whatever your place in the universal manifestation, everyone has an equal right to unite with the divine.
Yes.
This is our birthright. If we talk about birthright, this is our birthright. Capacities are about manifestation. That's a different thing. And the divine can use anybody's capacities. And someone asked Aurobindo and he says, so what if, Napoleon was this or Caesar was this? The divine, why can't he use the capacities even of men who are full of vices? Divine doesn't count these things. So capacities is a different matter. Divine can use any capacity. If this capacity is offered to the divine, so much the better. But people mistake that somebody with a greater capacity has more chance of yoga. He is closer. No. Anyone, somebody without any capacities can yet unite with the divine. Because in everyone, this miracle of the absolute exists. So it's so beautiful it is. All ocean lived within a wandering drop. Every drop contains the illimitable. A time-made body housed the illimitable. Consciousness is illimitable. Yes. To live this mystery out, our souls came here. This is the mystery. Mystery is process. And this is the real meaning of our life. How the finite can mate with infinity. How on the basis of a finite we can experience infinity. How limited in our environment in terms of space and time, yet we can commune with the illimitable. Not quitting and going away. Then it's no more the mystery. The mystery is that the infinite has become finite. Now on this basis we have to experience infinity. So how beautiful this is. You prophetically said, I must say now, you resolved a dilemma. I was thinking that, should I read line by line still, or should we skip passages and finish this canto today?
No.
Because the book of the traveler of the worlds. But then you said, we will complete and go on to book 2, canto 2. I don't know you noticed or not. And for me, this was an indication, and it just happened like that. Very naturally.
We have a lot to do yet.
So let's close with these 4 lines. Let's read them again. They're very powerful lines.
Yes.
A miracle of the Absolute was born. Infinity put on a finite soul. All ocean lived within a wandering drop. A time made body housed the illimitable. To live this mystery out. To live this mystery out, our souls came here.